Everybody's cold. Everybody's cold. Winter is back. Okay. All right. Heather, you ready to roll? All right, let's roll. All right, everybody, I'd like to welcome you to the Columbia Beach Town Council work session, Wednesday, February 1st at 6 p.m. and call this meeting to order. I do ask that everybody silence their cell phones if you have not already, so that we give anyone speaking the appropriate attention of their time tonight. Roll call of members, all members, with the exception of Dr. Karen Sullivan. She's absent tonight due to illness, but everybody else is here. Amendments to the agenda, I have none. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda? Great. All right, do I have approval of the agenda? So moved. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Approval of the minutes for January 5th, 14th, and 28th. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved. Have a second.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion?
The only discussion I have is I was not on council on the 5th and 14th. So I'd
Okay,
like to abstain from those.
got it. Ms. Williams, do you have something else?
Oh, yeah, just a minor thing. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but I remember from January 5th, there was discussion on the food truck court going at the bottom of Town Hill. Obviously that changed since then, since it went at the top of Town Hill, but it says there was a consensus. So I just wanted to put on the record that I was opposed to that.
Okay. I think in that meeting, I think there was consensus and that changed, but I can't remember. So we'll make sure that it's concurrent with the actual meeting.
That's all I had.
Okay. All right. You have approval for the minutes then, motion second, all in favor? Consent agenda, it's got budget amendments and appropriations are listed in your packet. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda? So moved. All right, do I have a second? Second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Sounds good. All right, council member liaison commission reports. I'll start over you. No? Mr. Allison? No, sorry, I started on the shorter side tonight.
We're so used to Dr. Sullivan giving us the
NGO report.
thing. We have time to get ourselves situated.
Yeah. Putting you on the spot. We're keeping this meeting rolling. 3 minutes in, look at that.
All right, so for Parks and Rec, first off, we want to thank the Barry Dunn for coming out and providing us with the information. They had 3 different days that they met with either citizens, town staff, town council, all different members of the community and stuff like that. Just so everyone's aware that they have received a total of 348 surveys completed. They indicated at one of the meetings that typically that's something you would see in a city of 60,000 people. So we are very above average on that. Everybody has their opinions in Columbia Beach. Imagine that. Yeah. Now we're good. The monthly meeting for Parks and Rec Advisory Commission will be next Tuesday, February 7th at 6 p.m. So please come out, and if you have any questions, please come out and address those then. Some of the Parks and Rec activities for the month of February, there'll be open gym where they'll have 3-on-3 or just shooting around at the Columbia Beach Elementary School, which will be February the 11th, 18th, and 25th at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. They'll also have grown-up activities, game night on Tuesday, February 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the community center. This will also feature a Texas Hold'em poker tutorial. So if you ever wanted to try your hand, that'd be a good time to do it. Thank you. I've been practicing it all day. They also have family game night on February 21st at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the community center. And this will be a Black History Month theme. So please come out and support Parks and Rec and also get out for game night. Thanks.
Thank you.
A couple of things to report. First of all, for Public Works, bids were received for the Central Drainage Area Project. They're being processed now and the contractor will be awarded shortly. Did everybody hear that? So, management staff will be preparing budget submissions. The pier piling replacement work is going to start as early as February 13th, as weather permitting. Work is scheduled to take 2 to 4 weeks, again, depending on weather. The pier is going to be closed during that time period, and we'll get more information out to you as we get a little further along. We're presently recruiting a GIS analyst. It's an important position. Hopefully we can get that filled shortly. And the stormwater resiliency plan kickoff will be this month. As you're probably aware, Ms. Byer is going to be making a presentation on water sewer tap availability, trash fees, containers, and undergrounding of electric utilities on Washington Avenue. That's it for Public Works. Now for our NGOs and charitable organizations. First, I want to recognize Neighbor to Neighbor. They've visited 20 homes of people who would appear to be in distress. They're working to repair someone's roof who is unable to afford it, going through a couple of different the CV revitalization housing authority. They're also going to replace someone's stove who's unable to do it, an elderly person. And they're presenting a couple of CPR classes in March, 2 different sessions. If you want to sign up for those, do it. Outstanding work, rubber hits the road there. The Alliance, speaking of people who do good work, the Alliance of Columbia Beach Community Organizations held its quarterly meeting on January 17th. Kathy Bachman spoke and they discussed the idea of most improved house boards program and volunteer of the year, and they decided that was best left to other organizations. Downtown Colonial Beach has a new website. They started the Mobilizing Main Street program with Virginia Main Street in January, along with 9 other localities across the state. That's a great thing for our town. First sip and stroll of the year is going to be scheduled for March, and they'll get specific information out to you there. Our radio station is having some students being mentored in the radio business and is actually going to be doing reports on school events. So that's exciting. The radio station is looking for a new home. You know of a place they can rent, or you can give them. They'd be happy to take it. Go to wwer.org there. The Town Matters program this month is going to be something of interest to all of the people in Colonial Beach. There's going to be an interview with Duke Dotson, and he's going to be giving an update on those projects. So I'm sure everybody's going to want to hear that. February 9th at 8 p.m. and February 11th at 9 a.m. The Beach Artists Guild is going to have an art walk on February 9th. Colonial Beach Foundation, Community Foundation, has had a meetup at Los Hermanos with Eddie Blunt as the speaker. Next event is going to be The Buzz with Dr. Self Sullivan, assuming we haven't killed her off here so far.
No, she's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Phillips is gonna be okay.
For the Love of
Just
Wine
sick.
Chocolate Tasting event, is a foundation fundraiser presented by Eric Nelson. Is going to be held on February 9th at 6 p.m. at the St. Mary's Parish Hall. And that's it.
Okay, just a few updates for the Economic Development Committee. Let's see, reminders have been sent to existing businesses to complete their applications for the 2023 Business Directory and Visitors Guide, and outreach for the new businesses is underway. The member and award ceremony will be held on March 22nd Let's see, the Economic Development Committee reviewed and finalized their 2023 goals. I mentioned that at the last meeting. And let's see, and to be aligned with the town's Economic Development Director 2023 strategic plan. The Chamber and the Economic Development Committee support the food truck projects, and they encourage the Planning Commission and the Town Council to streamline the codes and the processes and update zoning ordinances to meet current needs of businesses. And the VTC has opened grants for special events and festivals, DMO marketing, and the Marketing Leverage Program. The Chamber and Economic Development Committee are planning to submit VTC grant applications, which close on the 28th of February. And that's all I've got. Oh, and just to mention, their meetings, Economic Development Committee meetings are the second Tuesday of every month.
Thank you. I have nothing to report currently for the school board simply because their meeting is next week. So I will do that at the meeting after. I did, however, want to bring up the Chesapeake Bay Governor's School, which we don't talk a whole lot about that whenever our time comes together to talk about the things that the school's involved in. And I have the privilege to sit on the Chesapeake Bay Governor's School Board, and we had a meeting last week. We have several children here at school, young adults, that are attending Chesapeake Bay Governor's School. And I'm so impressed with the school making that a top priority. The kids get college credit, and to be able to start out when they graduate in June, May, whatever it is, with a year under their belt already is very, very substantial, especially monetarily, which is amazing. It's also part of the Northern Technical School, which I was trying to remember today if it was 1979, 1980, sometime the Technical Center started, and it's a vocational driven school as well. And when I talked with Dr. Mitchell, I was just amazed how many kids we have going down the road to the vocational center in Warsaw and Governor's School. And I am just so pleased with what's going on. So, thank you.
Thank you. I just have,
Madam Mayor.
yeah.
Can I add something for the schools?
Yeah.
So some of y'all may know or may not know, but our athletic director for the Drifters has lost his wife recently. They have two small children. Just to make you be aware, a lot of it's been on Facebook and things like that. All I ask is that you pray for their family. There's a meal plan set up on Facebook, and I don't have that, but I can get that information to you if anyone's interested in helping the family with anything. This is a stressful time for him. She was young, which I won't necessarily talk about the complications yet, but there are, sorry, he's a dear friend.
It's very impactful to the
Yes.
community because both the athletic director Earl and his whole family are a support system in the Drifter community. And Rachel used to drive me down to RCC for classes together. So I know. So it is very hard. I understand that. Yes, all of our prayers should be going out to that family right now. And I think there's many ways to support them. And so if you are so inclined, please do so. And other updates that I had was I just want to again echo the appreciation for the massive participation in the parks plan. I thought it was extremely engaging, and I saw a lot of people out, and I watched on Facebook. I couldn't attend the meetings, and good things to come for that. Also attended a women's prayer breakfast. It is once a month at the CD Diner or CD Games. And just want to thank the women for, well, from many churches, all denominations really within Colonial Beach, Christian denominations, and it was very nice to spend some time with them. And of course, a big thank you to the Colonial Beach Volunteer Fire Department for their dinner, which had an exceptional turnout. A lot of people in support of the fire department. All of your council was at the fire department dinner, including 3 district supervisors for the county. And so that was well attended and a lot of support for them. The planning commission was in a strategic planning meeting all day today. And of course, Karen is the liaison to that. So I'm just going to report that they also have appointed or recommended for appointment Bailey Thompson to the planning commission. And their next commission meeting for the month is next week. So I don't know if we could go ahead and approve the appointment of Bailey Thompson for the planning commission. Karen would be presenting that right now, but is that okay? All right, all in favor of appointment of Bailey Thompson to the planning commission? Aye. Yeah, Bailey Thompson for planning commission, Tom. Appointment Bailey Thompson.
Appointing Bailey Thompson.
Okay.
For the planning.
He says, sounds good. Okay, so I think the planning commission now finally has a full board again. Is that right? Yes. Okay, the chair is sitting in front of me. So, all right, wonderful. Glad to see it. So that's all of the announcements I have right now. The next up is presentation, so proclamation for Black History Month. The proclamation this year, and actually every year that we've done this, has just been, I think, enlightening to the Black history, the local Black history that we have here in Colonial Beach. This year, we're recognizing a very special person that I didn't know much about until the Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the service day over at the Baptist Church that was just held, where Supervisor of District 3, Dorothy Dickerson Tate, spoke at that event about this person who is a relative of hers. And so it piqued all our interest. Anybody who heard her speak, she was a very powerful speaker that day. And so we are commemorating him this proclamation. So I'll read it now. Whereas in 1926, Carter G. Woodson announced the second week of February would be designated to honor Black history and contributions of African Americans. And whereas in 1976, the United States government officially expanded the celebration from a week to a month to celebrate Black history in a positive way by acknowledging and celebrating the culture and history of African Americans vital to the growth and development throughout the United States. And whereas this year, the town of Colonial Beach celebrates Mr. William Hamilton Johnson. And whereas better known as Ham Johnson, was born free in 1857 and became a property owner of 2 lots along the Potomac River in 1879, what would later become known as the 300 block of Lossing Avenue. This is where he started his own farm with his wife. And whereas Mr. Johnson became a business owner of a general merchandise store and lumber company, becoming the largest taxpayer in Westmoreland County in 1893, with as much as 700 acres of owned property. And whereas Mr. William Ham Johnson lived as a successful and honorable man, leaving a reputable legacy behind for his family. And whereas many of his accomplishments were being appointed as postmaster by Congressman W.A. Jones and paying a year's worth of salaries for teachers in Richmond and Westmoreland County. And now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the Colonial Beach, on behalf of the Town of Colonial Beach citizens, does hereby proclaim February 2022 Black History Month and celebrates William Ham Johnson as, in his words, a simple, sensible, and honorable man who did the most to brighten the gloom during his time here on earth. I'll be up in Town Hall. Really thank Supervisor Tate, for sharing that local history with us. All right, next up is public comment.
There's 3 by email and 1 that's here.
All right, let's do anybody in person first, and then we'll read through email submissions.
I have Nigel Long.
Yes, Mr. Long. State your name and address for the record, and it's 5 minutes. Thank you.
So I'll try not to talk for that long. My name is Nigel Long. I live at 115 Lynhaven Court, but I'm also here to speak on behalf of the Monroe Landing Townhomes Association in respect of what is tab D, the trash toter proposal in your agenda. Before I do that, there are 2 personal comments. One is to thank you all, since I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the council before, to thank you all for what you do and how well you represent us, residents of the town. It is appreciated by many people in the town, hopefully by all. The other personal thing is a request. As I went through the agenda, there's a lot of useful information in there, but in at least one instance, maybe more, for example, tab C, where there was a reference to sewer proposals for connection fees, the associated fee structure wasn't included in the tabs for the public to see. So it was a little difficult for anyone who was interested in that to know what was being proposed by to the council members. So it would be useful to see those additional bits of information on a personal level.
Okay. We don't have them yet either. They're going to be presented tonight.
Just a comment. So what I'm here on behalf of I'm the treasurer of the Monroe Landing Townhome Association, talk about in tab D, these toters. And we're a community of residents like myself and weekenders, not short-term renters, but people who only use the properties typically at weekends, sometimes only summer weekends. We are concerned about how any proposal to using toters would work. Starting with the delivery, if toters are mandated for all properties in the community, they're brought and put in front of someone's house, who then won't be there for weeks at a time. What happens to the toters that are blown around? So something to be managed. And then the use of toters. Currently, a number of our residents who are not there during the week, owners who are not there during the week, will put out their trash, but would not be there to bring in association, our residents don't all have immediate access to the back of their property, where certainly as Nature Way, we would like our residents to keep their trash toters, except by bringing them through their house. Again, that might apply in other parts of the community. So people are going to be tempted to leave their trash toters out in front of the house, which we think is unsightly, and also, runs the risk if it isn't somewhere to secure them. Or they're going to have to drag them through the house. Whereas at the moment, they will take trash from their kitchen and put it out in front. So we wanted to share those 2 thoughts with you. We were a little bit confused, and we'll probably hear more about the financial part of the proposal. So we don't have a specific recommendation on the finances, except our confusion about adding a $316,000 fee for the community and $163,000 budget.
Employees, read in. Yeah, sure. Come on. Make sure you state your name clearly. If you didn't sign up, she has to write it in the minute. Oh, just state it out loud and as long as she can. write it.
My name is Skip Jordan. I live at 128 Locust Avenue. Now I understand that there's going to be more discussions about the trash and buying new equipment. I just think if they're going to start spending a lot of money on equipment, I think it needs to be brought to the citizens. That's because, we pay enough taxes as it is. I would just like to be able to have a vote on it, whether we want to go this route of the trash can toters or whatever. But, I just feel like as a citizen, we pay a lot of taxes and they all do a great job in the town. I have no complaints. But, when they start paying taxes this year, I had 6 cars and everything else is just going up and up and up. So as a citizen, I want to be mindful of the cost that we have to spend out. The trash guys, they do a great job, but buying new equipment, we need to be mindful how much it's going to cost us at the end of the year. So, but anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's go ahead with the.
Robert Harrison, 718 Taggart Street, emailed, I voiced my opinion about the subject to Councilman David Williams. I believe that charging homeowners and businesses for trash collection is absurd. I recycle everything that can be recycled. My household ends up with one 13-gallon trash bag each week for pickup. So to charge me for that is ridiculous. So this idea needs more research and an opt-out option for a household like mine. Second comment from Ms. Joyce Reimer, Bancroft Avenue. She says, I wanted to share and check some information as well as ask a couple of questions about building of planned unit developments in Colonial Beach. Let me preface this by saying that I am a strong advocate of such developments, believing they are the answer to the community's housing shortage and that for others across the country. Planned unit developments, or PUDs for short, can have several other benefits as well. However, I was left with a question after passage of the PUD zoning changes last year. Many supported the zoning changes based on assurances that the community could modify a proposal or even deny it if we felt it did not accord with what we thought was best for this community. As a detail-oriented person, I wanted to know the specifics on how that could be accomplished. I had also become curious about the term by right approval, frequently cited in hearings on the Dotson developments. What was that? Turns out these two questions are linked. I discovered that by right means a developer does not need to seek further approval on their project if they are strictly in compliance with existing zoning regulations. To build goodwill, they might accommodate requested modifications, but there is no requirement that they do so. Only under a provision that the plan represented a threat to the community's health, safety, or welfare could it be denied by the municipality. Although it has been difficult to find specifics on what would qualify as such a threat, I believe the bar could be quite high. Such ambiguity makes proving such a claim problematic and could leave the town susceptible to an expensive lawsuit. In other words, modifications or denial under that regulatory provision can be very hard to apply. If the above information is correct, what rights does the community now have realistically to achieve modifications or even deny a PUD project if we don't like it? This leaves me concerned with the best of intentions, town action expediting passage of new PUD zoning regulations last year may have seriously constrained residents' ability to influence the nature of planned unit developments proposed for our town with potentially serious repercussions. I look forward to hearing a response from the town's attorney on these questions. Next one is from Mr. Joe Kelly, 413 Work Street. I'm writing to provide you with my recommendations for a fair and balanced parking program for 2023. As you will recall, the town engaged Weed and Hunt to conduct a downtown parking study last year. They started the study on January 11th and included an inventory of parking in town, an open house event on February 11th, a parking survey, and a final report to town council on April 20th. I reviewed the Mead and Hunt report and reflected on my study of parking needs of homeowners, tourists, and daily beach visitors. My recommendation is to modify last year's parking plan as follows. April 1st through September 30th be the parking season. Zones 1 and 2, Washington and Colonial Avenue, 3-hour max parking from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., $2 per hour. Zone 3, Wilder Street Lot, all-day parking from 7 to 8, $3 per hour, $25 max. Zones 4 and 5, along Beach and Irving Avenue, 5-hour max parking, 6 spaces for golf carts only, from 7 to 8 p.m., $3 per hour. Zone 6 is Castlewood, 5-hour max, 7 to 8 p.m., $3 per hour. Vehicles with trailers all day, 7 to 8 would be the hours, $35 per day. Vehicles registered in town have free parking. Property owners can register their non-town registered cars for $30 each. Businesses can purchase up to 2 15-minute reserved spaces at their location for $100 per year. Parking lanes on Washington and Colonial Avenues are eliminated. Resident and guest parking only on side streets with appropriate signage. Appropriate signage will be installed ASAP. This program will be fair to residents, businesses, and tourists first, and then daily visitors. I expect that the program could generate additional revenue and mitigate some of the problems that will come from the Washington Avenue sewer project. We have 2 months to get a parking program in place that can help in the expansion of our tourism and of all businesses and residents in Colonial Beach. Let's get a new program in place now. I'm available at any time to discuss these issues further.
I just got the one from Joyce today, so I haven't responded, but I responded to Joe. Yeah. And I think that town manager will respond back to both. Okay. No unfinished business, we'll go on. Oh, Diane. Ms. Byers, the woman of the night. You-
All night, so there not to be any water over here. Can y'all hear me?
No.
You're not.
She's so happy that her mic doesn't work. Let's get it.
Try. There we go. We just got this.
Well, the first one is the utility pole relocation.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next slide, please. So we've had some questions about undergrounding the utilities along Washington Avenue from Colonial to Boundary. That's the area that this presentation takes in. And some of the reasons that we've had this inquiry was because, as you can see in that picture there, some of the utility poles are right in the middle of sidewalks. Some of them are behind the sidewalk. They're not consistent, but I think one of the major concerns or one of the major questions was ADA compatibility. Next slide. And again, that's just another photo there right in front of Town Hill that shows you that some of the poles are right in the middle. You see poles behind those that also carry utilities in the town property. Next slide. So some of the issues, you have parking on both sides of Washington Avenue, and that's prime parking, as we just heard, for residents and visitors. So you have to be cognizant of the right of way. Of the right of way width there. And it may, if you decided to keep both parking on both sides, it might entail additional right-of-way land acquisitions to move poles or to underground utilities. We also had a fairly recent donation of some very nice Christmas decorations. And just as a note there, if we got rid of the poles, we would have nowhere to hang those. Next slide, please. Alternatives on this would be no change. The sidewalks were in place prior to ADA requirements. So we have no requirement for modifying these sidewalks. It's just a request. There's nothing we would be violating by leaving those sidewalks in place as they are. Changes would involve redesigning right-of-ways to include a utility strip possibly with a green space, maybe relocate the poles or underground utilities. That would include, the design would have obviously have to include ADA sidewalks, and as you can read there, it may require or could allow for green space to be used for utilities, and it would give buffer between traffic and pedestrians. Again, this may require additional right-of-way land acquisition. Next slide, please. So the fiscal impact, I met with Dominion Power, and they sent me a letter saying that to relocate the poles and the transformers from Colonial Avenue would start at $245,000. And that does not include any easement purchases for relocation outside of the current right-of-way that we would need to do. Next slide, please. The cost to underground the poles, transformers, et cetera, would start at $700,000. And some of the things that we probably don't think about, you probably think, well, we just stick the lines underground, right? And it's the same footprint, it's the same everything. And that's not really the case, because you need to do duct banks, which you see the photo there with the red lines coming out of the box. That's a duct bank that would have to be created underground. So you'd have these large units that would be underground that again may require more right-of-way requisitioning to be able to put these things underground to be able to do this effectively. You're also still going to have transformers, pad mount transformers, such as the picture up on the upper left, that are going to have to be above ground for servicing. Next slide, please. So it's an informational briefing just to let you all know what this project would entail, should you like to proceed any further.
I have a question. Or does somebody else, you want to go first? To me, there are like 4, and I mean, this is just off the top of my head, but like 4 places that it is a significant problem. One is the pole that you showed in the picture. Another is the opposite side of Hawthorne Street here, right at that corner. And anybody who parks over there and watches our meetings has probably run into the pole, hit it with a purse or something, okay? And then the last 2 locations are right by the library, right here, where the handicap accessible parking is. And then in front of Monroe Bay Winery, what was Monroe Bay Winery. Anyway, I'm not really sure what that building's doing right now, but that was so narrow that when there was a coffee shop, I could not get my stroller through, like I literally physically got stuck. So I take my infant into the street with my stroller. So I just kind of wasn't sure if there was any thought about, is it possible to tackle any just one of those things, or is it the whole shebang or nothing?
I don't think it's the whole shebang or nothing, but I do think rather than engage Dominion Power, which is going to be costly regardless of whether it's 1 pole or 20 poles, I think we may have other options. We could do bump outs at those 4 areas. It may take a parking space or 2, but we could do that here in town. We could look at those areas and see if that would take any parking away or what that would entail. But do you all know what I mean by a bump out?
Yeah, where the sidewalk comes around the pole then instead.
Correct.
I think that's probably a reasonable thing to at least look at, and if it's to deal with those isolated places. 3 of them, well, at least 2 of them I know does not have a parking space in front of it. The other 2 right here do. Anyway, that's just what I thought in my head.
We can look at them.
Open to other comments, suggestions.
My only thought is, if this is something that we plan to do, we should probably do it sooner than later, because costs continue to go up every time or every year, or whether it be remove the pole or add concrete. Concrete is also going way up there too, so if it's something that we want to tackle.
The good part about Washington Avenue is we manage it, and it's not a VDOT right away, in the sense that we still have to meet the standards, but we have control over what happens.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Just a question for Ms. Byer. I'm not sure we have a $750 million problem that we can't solve with the bump outs.
Mhm.
That is why I suggested, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you give us an idea of, I know you're not prepared to give us actual numbers, but what would be the difference between 4 bump outs as opposed to ripping poles out and putting stuff underground?
It depends on, I'd have to look at the locations, but it depends on the amount of concrete, obviously. And it would also, I would think that I envision something a little more than just a concrete bump out. I'd like to maybe plant a tree there, do a little bit of green area to protect, whoever's walking out into that area. Make sure that cars actually know, hey, this is popping out into the street here, don't run over it, kind of thing. So I'd like to be able to take a look at those 4 areas and maybe get you I'm going to say it's going to be a much smaller number than $250,000. But I could have that for you at the council meeting if you'd like.
Thank
you.
William?
Yeah, the relocation, obviously you can't relocate the one like that's over here in front of the library because what did you do, put it on top of the building?
There's nothing there, yes.
Right,
We'd
so
have to go
that's-
out into the street.
Okay. And just curious, what these bump outs, could you maybe at a future meeting show us like what they would look like,
Sure.
examples of those?
Absolutely.
Okay. And, let's see, 700,000. Yeah, I guess that was all I had.
Yes.
Just want to clarify for a point, just for context, particularly for the audience and also for Ms. Byers' work. Last year, we were approached by several members of council to look at this issue from both an accessibility issue, but also from a beautification perspective. So obviously, when Ms. Byers worked with VDOT, was to look at the totality of the issue from both aspects to really give that context. If there was a desire to have all of the wires undergrounded, that was that total big cost. And then if there is a desire to move forward with the bump outs that we're discussing today, there would be obviously a much higher cost, but that's just why there's the broader approach.
Oh,
That's
no,
just
I
it.
appreciate having the context of what it costs to underground them. I think that's, it's good to know that and, but yeah, I think narrowing the scope is a possibility we should look at. Certainly handling the one at that little crosswalk area, that one's kind of a safety thing.
And a bump out at an intersection is it's a simple thing.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, just a question about the bump outs. I'm assuming that it would be a lane that would kind of come out into the road, like a sidewalk.
It would.
And would that require 5 feet, like the updated standards for ADA compliance? So would we have a 5-foot section coming out into what's now the street?
Again, I need to take a look at the areas. You can get by on ADA with 3 feet. So we would probably, again, let me take a look at the areas and draw and show you some designs next time. But 3 feet could come around that pole and into the roadway. Usually a bump out comes out about as far as a parking lane. So if you have a parked car there, it kind of protects that parking lane, which allows for the bump out in a tree or some sort of vegetation.
Yeah, that's probably about 9 feet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Would it make more sense to put the pole and the bump out and keep the people away from the road?
It would, but that involves Dominion again.
Understood,
Yeah.
but I would like to see that option as well.
Actually, I'd say it would, but it really doesn't. We can, especially at a corner, we can do a bump out either way with the pole at the corner. When you're in the middle of a block, like out here in front of the library, there's really, as has been said, there's really no option. We have no real right of way there between the building and the street, so we would have to go with something out into the lane.
I'm just thinking of people's safety.
Yeah.
The poles
No, I
in the road, and that's one thing. The people are there.
Well, and
I'd much
and the
rather walk
tree-
closer to the building than the
Right.
street, but not being able to fit through there at all is also.
And a tree, that's why I'm suggesting a tree or some sort of vegetation to
Yeah,
make the drivers see that.
yeah.
One last comment is, has anybody entertained, because that pole, and I've heard people complain, is right where people get out, handicap. Is there any chance of at least moving that space temporarily until we can resolve the issue?
The
In front
handicap
of the
space,
library, yeah,
absolutely. Mhm.
just a suggestion.
Wasn't there also a Girl Scout, I'm forgetting her name, that had an initiative for the
Yeah,
pole moving
Rosie.
thing?
Rosie.
I
I would love to make
Bring her
Rosie
into it.
happy. She did fundraise and I think she found out what one slab of concrete costs. So we should all buy more hydrangeas. I think she was selling.
Cookies.
Well, I mean, at
I
least
bought 10. I don't know.
if we are talking this thing, we should probably at least allow her to see something come to fruition
Oh, I'll
and
invite
bring her
to the
in.
meeting.
Right, that's what I'm saying. To keep, because she's the one that kind of like started an initiative to do these kind of things.
Love to have her involved.
She's wonderful.
That would be fun.
And it started with a letter to us because for her stepfather was wheelchair bound.
Okay.
Okay, so we've given a little direction on that. We'll get more information as we go. Okay. All right. Water sewer tap connection fees.
Me again, right?
Yes, it's Fire, right around.
All right, next slide, please. Okay, so in 2021, council directed staff to conduct a utility rate study. And in 2022, there was a utility rate study done with a contractor. And as part of the study, town staff analyzed the marking with other localities in the area to do water and sewer tap fee, hookups, availability fee, plan review fees, those sorts of things. So that's what we'll see further on in this presentation. Next slide, please. Water and sewer availability is when my crews go out, actually my managers go out, my crew leaders go out to determine whether or not a building lot has water and sewer, whether or not that lot is able to be served by our utilities. They have to do several things to make sure that that availability exists. So when I talk about availability fees, and you'll see it later in the presentation as well, that's what I'm talking about. The crew going out or the staff going out to assess whether or not it's even feasible for that to be an issue, a service that we can provide in that location. Back up. Okay, so no fee is currently charged here for that service. Most other localities do charge a fee for availability, to check the availability. In fact, that fee in most localities, as you'll see in the fees later on in the presentation, is a lot more than the actual tap in and hookup fee. And I think the reasoning for that is that that fee actually stays with the department, with the locality as a service fee, whereas the tap fee may or may not, depending on ordinances and so forth. Okay, now we can go forward. So some of the issues, our fees, I don't know when the last time was that ours were raised. Maybe Lisa and Adam can address that later on if that's a question someone wants answered. But the fees are definitely not keeping up with current material and staff costs. As you all know, the prices of things have gone up just incredibly. You can see the lines there for piping and goods and energy and services. Everything just keeps going up. I talked to some contractors just last week, and they told me that the costs from 22 to 23 have doubled again. So some of their costs are going up 100% in that short time frame. One other thing that I'd like to point out in this presentation is that no charge is made for water cutoffs other than for non-payment. So if you have a seasonal water cutoff need, we go out as Public Works employees and we shut the water off, and then when you come back in the spring or whatever the reason is you're leaving, we go back out and we turn the water on. This will be something that I'm just throwing it out there for your consideration. A lot of the older homes do not have water cutoff valves on the private side. So it may be something you might want to think about, even for safety of homeowners, that if we couldn't get there right away, it would take care of maybe some emergencies, that people wouldn't have to have flooded homes or flooded bathrooms or whatever if they could shut off their own water. So just another additional point that I wanted to make there. Next slide, please. So here is the difference again between availability fee and tap connection fee. The tap connection fee is, as you see in the drawing there, that's actually when we connect the lateral, which is the line coming from the main, back from the main to the home or to the business. That is called a lateral. And that lateral needs to tap into our main utility line. Where that line connects is the tap area. So that's what we're charging for when we say a tap or a connection fee. The availability fee again is the town for the charge for the town personnel to assess whether or not utilities are available to that particular residence or not. Next slide, please. This is a really busy slide, and you all should have this as a handout in your packets, I hope. If not, we can make sure that you get this slide, and it'll show you a comparison.
It's part of the paperclip. Oh, it's for the paperclip. Sorry, Diane.
That's okay. That's okay. I know this is busy, and I know this is where the rubber meets the road. This is what you all are going to want to take a look at a little closer. But it shows you, obviously, Colonial Beach at the top in the blue. It shows you our current rate structure. The R is for residential, the C is for commercial. And you see some of the other comparisons there: Cape Charles, Fredericksburg, Bowling Green, Westmoreland, Purcellville, Charlottesville, Tappahannock, and King George. As you can see, as you look down those fee structures, we are the lowest of the bunch. That would be the takeaway from this. Also, some of the things that you see on this are, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, plan review and inspection fees. So currently we don't charge plan review fees. Sometimes when we get a commercial plan into Public Works for review, sometimes the larger plans will take us sometimes weeks to go back and forth with the developers and talk about why is this here, or you can't put this here, or let's do this, or there's a lot of work that goes into that plan review on Public Works side and on planning, on the planning side. That's why I'm going to later on in the presentation recommend the plan review fee. The inspection fee, again, we do not currently charge an inspection fee. We do not have a dedicated inspector as such, but we do have two people that are the ones that go out that have the most experience with this. They go out and do the field inspections before anything is covered up to make sure that everything is done per code. So there's no, again, we incur a cost. If there's no fee, people tend to call you out 2, 3, 4 times. We're just trying to recoup some cost of that staff time and trying to show folks that we're going to help you put it in right the first time. We'd like to come out one time and do that inspection for you. So those are some reasons that those fees are in there and some of the thoughts behind why we're recommending those fees. Next slide, please. This is just kind of a graphic that shows you what you're seeing on the chart that we just looked at. It just kind of gives you a graphic depiction of where we are and how far, no pun intended, underwater we are with our feet.
Nice graphic.
This is for the residential water sewer tap fee, just the tap fee and not the availability fee. Next slide, please. This is the commercial water sewer tap fee comparison, again, to show you where we are in comparison with some of the others. Next slide, please. The only alternative I see on this one is that we don't change. We keep what we have. Next slide. And the recommendation, again, this should be on the other side of your handout. It's a little hard to read on this, but it'll show you what we're recommending as far as implementing increases. The yellow indicated fees up there are currently what we charge now. Anything that's in the white below those top four, we do not currently have a fee for those things, but we are recommending one. Are there any questions on that slide, or would you like me to go over any of the numbers, anything on that?
Can you say them out loud, please? The audience
Sure.
might have a hard time reading that.
Sure, and I apologize for the quality of that. So the water tap fee that we currently charge for residential is $2,250. And what we're proposing is $5,000. And again, if you look at the other chart, that's right in line. We're still fairly low in comparison with other localities. The commercial water tap fee that we currently charge is $6,068. And what we're recommending is $10,000. Again, right in line, or lower than most of the other localities on the chart. The sewer tap fees that we're currently charging for residential is $3,750. What we're recommending is $6,000. Sewer tap fee for commercial is currently $7,568, and what we're recommending is $15,000. Residential water sewer availability fee for residential, what we're recommending is $9,000. What we're recommending for commercial water sewer availability fee is $25,000. Plan review fee is $250 as a recommendation. That's for residential and commercial per plan. Inspection fee, residential and commercial first inspection, $125. Any second or subsequent inspections would be $150. And then the utility shutoff fee, which excludes for non-payment, would be the seasonal cutoffs and any other reason that you would need a utility shutoff. We're recommending $150.
People that get it shut off for off season, does their bill go down? This might be a question for Lisa. They're still paying the regular rate even if the water is cut off.
Correct. The only time it goes lower is when you actually remove.
So only when you actually get like, okay, got it.
And that's all I have for the presentation. I'm sure you'll have questions.
Oh, yeah. I'll open up to you all first, Mr. Woods.
Yeah, conceptually, it sounds like a good idea. The one question, two questions I would have is I would like to hear from the Economic Development Committee to see what sort of impact that would have bringing business into town. I suspect it would be marginal, negative impact. I would like to see that. And also, especially since we're looking at a declining real estate market more than likely, to see what impact that would have on new home sales. Obviously, it's fairly insane to continue what we're doing. It's just a question of really what is the right dollar amount? What's the magic number?
Did you get like average it and that's where you came with these numbers, or because I'm just looking at the example, I kind of like how Bowling Green has it, and as you pointed out, the availability fee, because there's a lot of work, and I've seen this before, where Public Works goes out over and over and over again to find out about availability. Putting the actual connection in isn't always the hard part. It's figuring out where everything else is in this very old system that we don't always have documentation for. A lot of investigative time in that. And right now we're not charging anything for that, and that is insane. as I think Mr. White pointed out. But like that balance, the way that Bowling Green did it, where it was kind of heavier on the availability part, and then if you actually want to connect, well, we've done the research now, so now the connection should be a little more streamlined. Just looking for discussion, feedback. Yes, Ms. Williams?
Oh, yeah, it's just, I definitely would like to see this go out to the community, especially, and maybe hear back from the builders. I mean, this definitely impacts them. Some of these seem quite significant. Water sewer availability fee, 25,000 for commercial. We're trying to promote, more business in town, where maybe something that significant might impact new businesses trying to open up in town. So I would definitely consider maybe more in that sum. And so, but the water availability right now, it's only, the tap fee for water is 5,000. And so we're talking about, for residential, we're talking about raising that, 2250, raising that to 5,000, and then 9,000 for water availability. So anyway, yeah, I'd just like to see this go out to the community and get some of their feedback, because honestly, I don't know. I mean, I definitely agree that this needs to be addressed, and I'm one of the ones, saying we needed to have this. I wish, the 50 or however many houses were put in the last year or so. I wish we kind of addressed this prior to that, because that's having a significant load on our town's resources, like as the mayor and others have said in the past, residential doesn't really bring in money. It actually is a drain on our system, even though we welcome the new residents, of course. So that's my main concerns there. And then just, you're talking about the cutoff, how many homes don't have that. What would that involve? Because I definitely think that's an issue. If you can't turn off your water in an emergency, that's a huge problem. You could have major damage. And I would think it even would impact your insurance costs. Because if you can't go turn off a lever in 2 minutes, Public Works gets there in 30 minutes or hour if it's on a Sunday, evening or something. That could be significant. But I would like to hear from you, what would that entail? Like making people add those, like how do we even address that? We can have a list of who does and doesn't have shutoffs and stuff.
Who does and does not have shutoffs, I don't know if we have a list or not. What that would entail logistically, I can tell you that it would entail calling a plumber and having a valve, a main valve put on the plumbing wherever it's coming into the house, so that the homeowner, renter, occupant can turn off that valve. How do we make people do that? I think that's probably something Don could address more so than I could in his department. I think that would probably be an ordinance that we would want to put into place if that's the direction you want to go, to require shut-off valves. I would hope, and I apologize, I haven't looked at our ordinance because it would be on the planning on the private side, but I would hope that our ordinance requires shut-off valves on new construction.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wood?
That's one of the reasons that I suggested that we get some input from the Economic Development Committee and some of the realtors in town. Of course, we want to make everything transparent to our citizens, but the citizens who already have the service, it doesn't impact us.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so consequently, what we need to do is make sure that, again, we're finding that sweet spot of recouping our losses and making a couple of bucks. And also make sure that we don't hurt our Economic Development Committee, because it's important for everybody to know, if you're already set up,
Correct.
this does not affect you.
Correct. Yes, thank you for making that point. Another point that I wanted to make in response to Mr. Williams' comment about residential being a taxing on the system. Keep in mind that everybody that we connect to the sewer system, water sewer system, has to be treated at the wastewater plant. So as we increase the facilities that we're servicing, we're also increasing the amount of water that we're treating, wastewater that we're treating, which causes costs to go up in other areas as well. So as far as making a few bucks, I doubt we would. these numbers are not gonna make us a few bucks. We could go up to, Purcellville, which I was really impressed with their costs, but, I don't think if these costs were gonna make anything.
To
But
give context for the audience, Percyville is at a total cost for the connections for residential properties of $71,000. And for commercial properties, $236,000.
So maybe we have to go to the horse.
So I would say that's Percyville's way of saying don't build here,
yes, yes.
right? That's how they're doing it. So most of the numbers, I know that was really small. The chart was small for everybody in the audience. So just to give you guys some context on that, most of the numbers range from 15, 17, 14, 12, 70, well, then you got Percival. 21, 20, 19, and then the commercial ranges are more significant. 54, 27, 68, 63. So anyway, there's none of them are at $2,250 for water. Not even close. So I say you're definitely right with the underwater aspect of that. We've known this, we needed to address it. We were waiting for that study to happen. It's time. It's time.
Yeah, I was just curious, the chart that has, like you said, all the different localities. What is our residential and commercial totals as you have them suggested? Just because I'm assuming you're averaging out all the different fees, availability, tap fees, all that.
I'm not sure I understand what what we're proposing
Yeah, on this chart here, you have the totals. Right now, we're at
for
6,000.
6,000.
So what would that go up to for residential and commercial? 13,636. What would that roughly?
For the water, water and sewer tap fee, the combination would go up to 11,000. For commercial, the tap fee would go up to 25,000. And that's just for the tap connection, which is what the only thing we charge right now.
Right. Okay. Here they've got, you've got availability, like Cape Shop, 4,000 availability, 75. Connection fee, 6,600.
Yeah, so I think you're
Sewer
talking,
availability, so it's like 12,300 altogether. Yeah, I was just an example, like, are we looking at?
So for the water, sewer, residential, we would be adding roughly $5,000 to that.
Okay.
And then for the sewer, water, or for the commercial water and sewer, we would be adding about 11,300, something like that.
yes, Mr. Allison.
So one of my concerns is contracts on houses, implementing this scenario. Because if a builder has already put a contract on the house, these funds cannot be passed on to the consumer, right? So I think we have to be mindful of our businesses and our contractors if they already have a contract signed on the house. You see where I'm going with this?
Could we not implement this with a 60-day grace period or a 90-day grace period?
We can do whatever you'd like.
You see what I'm saying? Like that might be a way that anybody who has a contract on something would be under,
Absolutely.
not that grace period to get it in, and then we're done. Then they would give some time for them to adjust. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing. Just off like an immediate reaction, everything that is in the white dots, I think is great. I think adding the tap fee higher along with the white dots is too far. So that's just an immediate reaction in where I'm at. However, I do feel very strongly as though this town needs to protect itself against fast growing development in a lot of ways. And we're having less and less buildable lots, and a lot of it will be infill or redevelopment of what we have now. But I think that's a growing concern here. And so I do think that having a higher charge to build a new house in Colonial Beach, we're at that time now. And I'm not sure, I don't want it to be a deterrent, but if it slows the pace down, it might not be the worst thing in the world. So, and also there is a much added cost to our community. I mean, to the point about what I had said before about residential being added, and that comment was particularly about when you're adding residential in, especially in sprawl, more distance between residences, more like when you're picking up the trash, you're not going further, you're picking up one more can, there is added cost in all those things. Higher density is a more efficient way of residential development, which is why downtown that's a positive. But there's pros and cons to all these things. And I do think we need to be protecting town. So one of the things that I asked about was impact fees. Related, not related, it's more of a planning regulations and the public works side of this. And I don't know if as a protection, if there was even possible, I don't even know the possibility of an impact fee. But I just think that during this conversation of what does it cost to add more residents to Colonial Beach? What is the cost? Because there is a cost. It's a cost to all of our services in doing that. And is there a fair treatment to that right now for the town, for everybody else's burden in the services we're providing now? So, and I don't know, is Stefan on the call? Is that a question he can get back to us on at a later date?
Yes, I'll need a little more information, but I've made a note.
Okay. Because to me, it looks like this is really the 11,000, Diane, for the tap plus the 9,000 for the availability.
Yes.
So that's at 20.
Yes.
So I think we need to be above our neighbors because we're better than our neighbors. Just say it. We're providing more services than our neighbors. We are. There are higher costs here for a reason because we provide more service. This is why people live in Colonial Beach. So with that comes a cost to that. But I don't think we need to be Percival right at that point.
I think that would handle the development problem.
What happens? People just don't build a house. $71,000 tap fee. You gotta really want to build a house.
I think it's a different market as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Is there any more discussion? on
Yeah,
that?
as long as we're doing it in a data-driven fashion. You know, right now, we're kind of, well, that number's too high, that number's too low. It's like, that jar of caviar is too expensive. How would I know? Right.
Mm,
And so we need to get some data to see again, where we're encouraging the right amount of growth. I think we all ran on platforms of control growth.
mm.
Okay, we know we need some, but where is that spot? And right now, we don't know that.
Yeah, well, and I think as a burden of growth, it's not gonna stop. We're clearly didn't get any smaller, guys. We're not going down in population, which is great, but I think we need to protect ourselves in the future of additional taps. So, you know, this is in the right direction. That was just a first reaction to me. I just wanted, you know, it's part of the discussion process. Yes, Mr. Wood.
Just one more thing. I think we should definitely try to get this done sooner than later. So yeah, that's my main thing. It's just hopefully we can come up with a plan that council can review and agree on.
Well, it's not just up to me. So if there's an agreement to council to move forward with the fees as proposed by Diane for public comment next meeting, we can certainly do that. I'm just withdrawing my own opinion.
I'd like to see it go out to the public first at least, so that I get a look at these numbers, because nobody's seen them yet.
Okay.
They're pretty significant, like you said, 20 grand or whatever. That's a lot of money for new residents. So, yeah, I'd like to see that. And then what is the process for implementing something like this? Would that be for the planning director or?
I think it's a change to our town code, right?
I would say so, yes. Yes, the
We're talking
the
about
code would
public
need to be
hearing.
amended. Yes,
Public hearing
yes,
and all that
yes.
stuff.
And then the 60 period, I mean, whatever you all decide as far as grace period, we would build that in and then go forward.
Okay, thank you.
So, Ms. Meyer, as far as getting the information to the public, I'm sure you're going to be happy to share the numbers. And
Absolutely.
we can all put it,
Sure.
put it on the town webpage, the council webpage. We can put it on our social media. So it's not like we're hiding it.
Sure.
Okay, outstanding, thank you.
No.
Heather does post our presentations to the website, and our council communicates documents will go out with that same information. So that'll be the method in which it gets on our site.
Okay. Adam, did you have something like that? No, okay.
I don't.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on that? Is there any further direction for Ms. Bayer on this? We want to look at, what a revised town code would look like sooner rather than later, to Mr. Williams' point. And we can even put it on the next meeting agenda with a public comment period. We don't have to vote on it. Not give an opportunity. If we decide to vote on it to take, quicker action, we can. It's no mandatory that we have to vote on it at the next meeting.
Will this require a public hearing?
To revise town code, it's not required, but we do that.
I think we're getting a lot of public input for this,
Okay.
specifically our builders.
Yeah. They know they've been getting away with it though for a long time, so I hope that they're honest with that.
Understood, but I mean,
conversation.
again, any charge that they get, they're gonna pass to the consumer, which then means the house pricings are now gonna go up $20,000 or excess of $10,000+ on every single new home that's gonna be built, which then raises values of homes across the board because new houses are being built for X amount of dollars. So it's an impact for everyone, not just our builders.
Just a comment on that. I did talk to 2 of the builders here in town and they support this. And for whatever, take that as you will, but they support it and understand that it's been a long time, in excess of a decade, since these fees were amended. Just a comment.
And I think it's important that we realize too, that indirectly, our citizens who have done all the work making our town what it is, are helping subsidize the new builders
Yeah.
because the cost of their services and so forth are going up. So maybe it's just time we got caught up.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, let's see some language at the next meeting. Let's put a public hearing on the agenda. Try to make something substantial out of this. And see, the information will be out there. You can get back some feedback. I agree with you that Diane, all the builders that I work with, nobody is going to be shocked that these are going up and they also recognize the need for it. So I think you're right about that. Okay. Next up, what everybody's here for.
You mean that wasn't it?
Talking trash. Talking trash.
All right.
Was I wrong about that? Is that why everybody here?
No, we're getting some notes.
I know, we have our trash truck driver back there.
We do. Here's the moral support for me.
Oh, good.
Okay, next slide. So this is the code revision that would have to take place in this, just for your reference, is chapter 12, which references the trash collection fees area of code. And in summary, town staff in 2022 was asked to investigate streamlining trash coders, getting everybody on the same page as far as what kind of container are you using to put your trash in. One of the main reasons for this is our trash guys, and you all have seen them, they have a lot of pride in their work. They go through the town and they just work their hearts out every day. They work hard. They pick up some of these bags that are in excess of 30, 40, 60 pounds sometimes. We have trash trucks that have the capability of picking up toters. We're not using that in a consistent or efficient way. We can use that to protect our staff. So that's my little soapbox about protecting my staff. I think we owe it to our employees to make their jobs the safest we can make them. Trash is currently offered free to all citizens, businesses, churches. I know there's a little bit of misunderstanding maybe there. People are commenting, and I've gotten comments since this went out, that it's covered in my water and sewer bill. It is not. That my real estate taxes paid for this. It does not. So we currently do offer trash service for free, and I'm not aware of any other locality in the area that does that, that offers this service for free. The consideration, the last item on that list, the consideration regarding a trash fee schedule, making that mandated for all residents is just something to consider. Just something for you to have in the back of your mind. Do you want to make this a mandated service that if you live in town, you have to have trash service? I have no opinion on that. It's just something I'm bringing forth that other localities had brought forth. Next slide, please. So again, this is the same sort of truck that we have in town. They are capable of mechanically dumping the toters, and it lessens the wear and tear on our staff. Again, just not used. Trash pickup again offered free, and right now we're paying no landfill tipping fees to Westmoreland County, because we are carrying Westmoreland County residential trash. That's fairly unusual and fairly gracious, I think. That may change if you get a change in administration in the county. So just another consideration. Next slide, please. I feel like I'm repeating this a lot here, but our trucks have this capability. They already have this. There would be, you're good, Heather, right there. There would be no there would be no purchasing of new equipment. We already have a fairly new trash truck. It does have the capability, so there would be no investment in new equipment. We already have the equipment. The only thing we would be investing in would be the toters. And that would be something that I eventually see being a town, something that we would hot stamp with the town seal, and it would become a town, the property of the town, the toters would be. And then as they wear out, we would replace them. That would be part of the fee structure. Alternatives, you could choose to get out of the trash business. The residents and businesses would then contract with a private hauler to pick up the trash. We could repurpose our small staff of 3 to 6 people, depending on whether or not we're doing double routes to other divisions. We certainly can keep them busy other places. The capital costs, I'd say, would be the replacement of, we would still need 1 trash truck because we're still dealing with beach, special events, town trash, that sort of thing. So we still would need some sort of capability to collect trash. But we would not need a backup truck, which right now our backup truck has quite a bit of age on it, needs quite a bit of maintenance. But that would be a potential savings. And you could choose to not change it. Here's another busy slide for you. This is, again, you see Colonial Beach at the top. What we're proposing is $30 a quarter, which would be $10 a month. And that yearly cost would be $120. And you can see some of the other localities there. Even at $120, the only one we would be close to would be West Point, which is $120. They do mandate trash service for residents and commercial businesses in that town. Lisa's telling me that Cooper's, the number at the bottom is now, they've gone up since we did this presentation to $18 a month. So costs are rising again. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing are, I would say that we start with the 64-gallon toters and see how that goes. This cost per unit is $52. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you know that that's a pretty good price.
That's a great price.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, they're like 100, yeah, absolutely. So this would be based on bulk, of course, this would be based on the 3,000 units, and it is a service contractor that is on Sourcewell. The 96 gallon, should we decide that certain residents need that 96, the price is there as well. The average lifespan of a commercial toter is 5 to 7 years. Some people, obviously, our trash folks are very courteous with the trash containers. So we may get a little bit more than 5 to 7 years out of those. But they would need to be replaced as they age out. And that's what I was suggesting with us being the owners of the toters, and then just replacing those as they age out for residents. Next slide, please. This is a potential impact chart, and it shows you based on 2,600 residents, which is roundly what we have now, what we service now. The cost per quarter at $30, the cost per year at $120 would yield $312,000 a year. The commercial, we serve about 25 commercial accounts right now, and that would yield us about $4,500 a year. That sounds like a lot of money. $316,500 for potential revenue. But when you take into account the toters, the cost of a new truck, which we're right now taking out of general fund money, the maintenance, the staff, we only have a budget right now of $163,708.98 for all of that. We are, again, looking at a truck in our lot right now that needs about $18,000 to $20,000 in maintenance. I don't have the money to do that. So we have to pick and choose what we fix on this truck. So tires for a trash truck, you're probably looking at $40,000 or $50,000 for tires. So it's just kind of the nickel and dime things that we don't think about on maintaining equipment that this fee could definitely help to pay for. We also have staff, I'll just mention briefly, that probably could use a raise. This could help with that as well. Next slide, please. So the recommendations tonight, that there is a proposed trash fee per quarter implemented, that we consider implementing the consistent containers, the toters. The 64 gallon is what I would recommend starting with. And then, of course, along with that, we would need ordinance revisions to Chapter 12, which Bill and I have been working on. Bill's done a lot of work on this already. Thank you, Bill. And then again, consideration given to mandating trash services. Some of the other localities have done, whether or not you would want to do that. And again, I have no yes or no, or no nothing to tell you yes or no on that. That's just a recommendation based on some of the other localities. Next slide, please. I think that's it. Questions?
Yeah. Mr. Wood, I'll let you open it.
Ms. Meyer, are we looking to solve the revenue problem or wear and tear on our folks' problem?
I think it's both.
Okay.
Like I said, I have a truck that I can't run right now consistently because we can't repair it unless we rob Peter to pay Paul, kind of thing. The wear and tear on our folks is definitely a need. It's something that I dealt with in the last locality I worked in. these guys pick up some things that they should not be picking up. There is also a safety issue of if there are bags outside of the toters, they're running into needles, they're running into glass, they're running into things that can hurt them. I don't want that to happen.
Right.
If we mandate that they have toters, that we don't pick up loose bags anymore, that does away with a lot of that as well. So,
One of the things that I would like to see is, because I agree with all those things. Obviously, there are cost savings. If you move people to other departments, you can utilize them somewhere else. Okay, so there are payroll savings there. The other thing is there are workers' comp issues go away and that sort of thing. So we would take a look at how much our insurance would go down if we did these things. My question would be, because everybody likes getting their trash picked up, it's hard not to, right? So if we were able, if people bought their own toters, for instance, okay, if that might mitigate the need to charge fees. I'd like to see what the cost would be if people purchase their own toters. Pardon me?
They don't, they won't.
Okay. Then what happens if, and maybe the horrible answer is they'll leave the trash out and it doesn't get picked up, and then you've got a public health issue.
and then we get phone calls and you get phone calls and then we have to go get it anyway.
Right, right. The other questions that I would have, and maybe these are better asked somewhere else, but just the idea of a tax credit for people who bought their own toters, that sort of thing. Just ways to mitigate the fees, because it's going to be highly unpopular, as you know. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
For just a comment on mitigating the fees. To buy one toter, as the mayor said, it's going to be $120. There's your yearly fee.
That's what it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. So the fee is really not substantial. When you look at the chart and what you look at other folks, what other folks are charging. If you would go out and buy a toter, I think Cooper's provides you a toter, correct?
No,
You have to provide your own. Waste Management in my neighborhood brings you toters and they replace them at the SAH out. But those toters are $120 minimum to buy at Depot or those. So just a consideration.
But, and those are the cost justifications, honestly, that we need to show our constituents,
Okay.
so that, you know, they see what's in it for them. You know, because otherwise it looks like we're jacking up your fees. And maybe if we do a better job of explanation, they'll understand. Thank you.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, just a few things. Well, I did find one at Walmart for like, I think under $80, but it's a 64 gallon, I think it was. But a couple of questions. The condos that the person mentioned earlier, that definitely concerns me. You know, forcing people to drag them through their homes doesn't sound like a very good option. How would we address something like that? And if you have experience in other communities?
I do. There are ways to deal with high density areas, which the townhomes would certainly be. And we could certainly work with their HOA. I don't know what their requirements are. It sounds like from what Mr. Long was saying, that they may have something in their HOA requirements that you don't store trash in front of the homes. I don't know that that's in our code, that you don't store it in front of the homes. But that would be something that we could definitely work with high density areas. We could maybe build a corral somewhere, or they could build a corral, suggest a corral. They have the option of going with private vendor who would provide a dumpster for them and we wouldn't pick up. I mean, there are various things that other places I've worked in have done for high density areas.
Okay. And just a comment that I've seen online, which makes sense, is there's a lot of people here that are just, you know, they call themselves weekenders or seasonal folks, so they don't use the trash. They may not use the trash at all, because like if I'm here just for the weekend, I'm not going to wait till Wednesday or whenever my pickup day is
Right.
and drag my and have my can sitting out, so they may not use it at all. That's just a comment that I've heard online.
Mhm.
The current toters, do we have a figure? I think I asked you a while back. Unfortunately, I'm the one that brought up the toters, so I might get, stuff thrown at me from some of the residents, but when I was riding on the trash truck last year, I noticed that they had the ability to get those things lifted without having to pick them up.
Yeah.
But what's the percentage of the town that currently has those?
I'm gonna defer to Bill.
I was gonna say, bet Bill there.
I know you're gonna be a rough guesstimate, but
It is, actually, he has the data. I know he has the data sitting in front of him.
Sure, come on up, Bill. This is our trash truck driver, by the way.
It's strange you asked about our consensus of the totes and everything in town. 2 weeks ago, I just did a tally of 1 week in retrospective to see, this is my tally sheet. And each line is a resident that we serviced, and I checked totes, cans, and bags. So just at the end of the week, I also did August 2019 and during the end of the summer, and I did January just 2 weeks ago in the dead of winter. And the totes that we used in August 2019 were 800 toters, whereas in January, at the dead of winter, we used 988 totes. The trash cans that the guys had to manually lift themselves in August 2019 was 1,662 cans. And the cans in January 2023 was 1,377 cans. Now, everything else that's laying around on the cans, the cardboard, the loose bags, a lot of places didn't even have cans out, and we had to pick up for that. The cardboard in 2019 was 1,300 loose bags and cardboard. And since we don't recycle, it goes in the hopper. And January being dead of winter, it was also 786 bags and cardboard. So the tonnage overall in January or August was 35 ton for a week, or 70,580 pounds. And January 2023 was 25.64 ton at 51,280 pounds. So you guys, you see the trash cans and the cardboard. I don't have a breakdown on the tonnage for those separately, but that's a lot of trash for these guys to be toting, pulling into the hopper and sweeping. So that's why we're looking at the toters, just as an idea, as a, their safety, pulled muscles or pulled ligament in the shoulders, and the totes can just lift them in. There's more weight that they can pick up instead of having a 2-man lift and pulling it. And some can't even lift 2-man. We have to set them aside and wait for the next time if the homeowner breaks it down for us. So that's what we do. This is what we do in town.
I appreciate that.
It's I guess try to review.
Bill, you can stay up there for a second, because I want to keep discussing this.
Just a couple more minor things.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's see. Well, I did want to clarify. I mean, I know you said that it's currently free, but the $162,000 does come from somewhere.
It's general.
Bill's not working for free and the trucks aren't free.
No, it's
So-
a general fund item.
So it is a tax. It's just not like, I mean, it's either going to be personal property,
Parking,
residential, or
maybe,
lodging, or some tax.
Maybe
Someone
parking.
pays for it.
Somewhere it's being taken out of our tax dollars. That was my comment about that. The enterprise fund, you had mentioned that, and I don't know where this is all gonna go. We're council members, we take the grief or not from the residents, but the enterprise fund was mentioned, I think, in the information. And even if we don't start this fee thing, is there a reason why we couldn't start an enterprise fund, a fund for the trash pickup and start it as its own entity, and at some point maybe if we don't do this right away, transition to that, so that we can at least track it and then eventually get it to its own fund.
So Lisa may want to address this, but enterprise funds are usually funded through the fees that are charged for the service.
Okay, so that answers that.
Yes, enterprise funds are self-sufficient. They run like business. So the refuge right now is under the general fund. It is not an enterprise fund. We do track the refuse cost every year. This has its own department. So we have those numbers. If you wanted to create it as an enterprise fund, it's going to have to be self-sufficient, which means it's going to have enough money to buy trash trucks every 5 years, or replace the totes every 5-7 years, cover the salaries. So you're talking like a couple different things here.
Okay.
Right now, we've got data that you can look at to see if it's possible to move it to its own enterprise fund where it's self-sufficient.
Okay, and the 100, since you're speaking, the 162,000, are we saying we're gonna collect the 312,000 and that 162,000 is gonna stay in the general funds and be spent somewhere else?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we would free up what we're spending on the trash by making an enterprise fund that's self-sufficient. We would then be charging money, and this is obviously all of us have received a lot of citizen input about this.
And so have I.
I think one of the first emails I got was, well, I know our water and sewer fees go to the general fund. No, that is not true. I just want to make sure that's clear. That is not true. Water and sewer are their own departments, and in this town, water and sewer pays for itself, which is a rarity in the Commonwealth. Many towns and cities are having to subsidize their water and sewer with real estate and other taxes. We are running very efficiently in that sense, and I'm very proud of it, as you can tell. And so anyway, we've been doing pretty good on that, but this would be making trash just like this water and sewer funds where collections are coming in, into it. Okay, what Diane was making some funny faces, and I don't know if it was to India or to me.
I think India would like to speak.
Yeah, just two things quickly. There's been a lot of discussions about the enterprise fund and really from an operations perspective, which I think Diane was kind of alluding to, that one of the reasons that it could be advantageous to go toward the enterprise fund is that you do run it more like a business and that the general fund is not subsidizing those services in the future. Also want to keep in mind that there are mandates that are out of our control. Several people, I think, in that refuse department make $12.92. Next year, the state will mandate 13. At some point, we'll be at 15. So I think there should also be some consideration as it relates to fees that we will have to pay, especially as it relates to salaries. That if we are not keeping up with those trends, there will be a bigger jump at one specific time or another. Also, just for reference, in 2022, we budgeted $357,000 for refuse, and our actuals were $355,000. So we only had about $2,000 to spare. So as we think about inflation and all of these other costs that are continuing to rise, I think it's also prudent to keep that in the context as we discuss this as a potential enterprise.
Yeah, I think those prior expenses probably should have been part of this presentation, not just the budget amount. But that was because we replaced the truck. Right, last year? Yeah. I have a couple more questions from residents. I want to see where we're at in this discussion. To Mr. Wood's point, I got the question about what are we going to save in insurance on this? Another question I got, you don't have to, this is just, things as we discuss it, maybe look get me answers on them. How many cans per household? I think for most people, 1 can is probably fine, but maybe there are households with a lot of kids and they are using a couple cans right now. So would there be an option to have a second can or to have the larger can or something? Would there be an option for people to have?
Absolutely. We know that we're going to have to customize the program to some degree. And that's why I provided the 64 and the 90 gallon costs. In other localities where I've worked, they offer if you don't want the larger can, if you don't have an area for it or whatever the reason, you can get another 64 gallon for I don't know, $3, $5, whatever the cost would be. There would be an extra, whatever attached to that can, but we can work those details out. Absolutely, those are things that need to be considered, just like the high density, servicing the high density areas would also need to be considered.
Yeah, I think maybe there should be a follow-up with the HOA. I think Nigel back there, to go through their concerns. Next question was about opt-outs. Now, this town is able to run on all of its property owners, whether you're here or not. That is how all of our services happen, and you pay for the fact that it is available to you. In the sense that get a lot of people, part-time people that come down seasonally, and they say, why do I have to pay a water sewer bill? And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter until you want to flush your toilet. Then it matters that we have a plant that we have to maintain 365 days, 24/7. And in order for you to flush your toilet one day that year, that plant still had to operate that whole time. So anyway, just kind of remind people that capital costs don't go away whether or not you are here or not. Somebody asked me if this was, because I think this is the question because of the word enterprise fund, if everybody's getting fired. That's not true. I just want to make sure look, these are policies and differences and questions. I just want to make sure
We're trying to
addressing
keep them. We're
Yes.
trying to keep
So everybody keeps their job
and stays healthy.
and stays healthy. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Next question was, in assessing and looking over this program, adjusting our senior and disabled discount program. It has not been updated in quite some time, and we have adjusted rates since then, and if it is, the wish of this council to make the enterprise fund out of this, I think there are people that qualify in that program need to be considered. One person said, get the trash cans, but not the blue ones. Can they please be green or gray? Not the blue ones, just passing that along. I think the blue ones are kind of like really bright, and if it's left out, it's kind of in your face, and
But they would match mine.
they match Rick's eyes.
Hey, what are we doing?
Green or gray? You like the blue one? I'm kind of, all right, I'm
Colonial beach color, blue. Well, I'm not stuck to a color.
okay. I'm passing it on. Green, not blue, or gray, not blue. Anyway, I'm passing it on. I thought the high density questions were important and good, and there needs to be some more thought into that. I did have several people, and I know there's some knee-jerk reactions to this trash fee, and I understand that. This is just a discussion right now. We're not voting tonight. But I think when citizens or people I've talked to that have either see their trash guys back there picking those things up, and I'm going to tell you, there is nothing heavier than kitty litter. That stuff is so heavy. And most oftentimes, the largest amounts of kitty litter are not in toter trash cans. They're in the trash cans that they have to physically pick up. Those guys are a beast. They work it. Okay, from personal experience on the back of the truck, they are, and you both know, you both have ridden the truck, I think. But I worried about it. I really worried about it when I was back there. It's very heavy, and you're right to worry about glass. And I saw things that were absolutely dangerous that they have to go pick up because it's not in the can. And I'm not sure everybody quite thinks about the safety part. That is really real. And so I just wanted to echo that, because I talked to a few different citizens. You talked to the safety thing, and also the fact they'd have a nice trash can that stood up. Some of these people are complaining to me about the fact that their trash can is good, beats a crap because they bought the $80 Walmart trash can, And the wheels are broke in 6 months. They've had to replace them every 3 or 4 months because they don't hold up. And in the end, they're like, heck yeah, I'd pay $10 to have a nice trash can and my service. So I have heard positive comments too, and I just want to kind of put this out there because I think there's a knee-jerk reaction, but I think there is a lot to consider in this proposal. So is there more? I think there's some follow-up on this item. You want to, is there more direction for Public Works? Yeah.
Just final comment. I actually don't think this is a bad thing, but I think the sentiment from the public, just for the record, is that our taxes just went up last year. And so there, I mean, I just got my escrow bill in the mail, and I'm sure a lot of people, other people are too. We're talking some cases $100 or more a month, in addition to what they were already paying last year. So, and personal property on top of that. So this is kind of a sensitive, touchy time to really be raising any fees or taxes or whatever you want to call them. So I just wanted to point that out as my main reason for why I probably wouldn't support it where I normally might.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
Ms. Byard, is there any other, sorry, any other fee structure cost analysis that may be lower than what you currently have that could give a level playing field to get our feet wet in something, other than just it must be $10 a month kind of thing? I'm not saying it's not cheap.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
I mean, we can do whatever you all would like us to do, but I think $10 a month is minimal, especially if you're talking enterprise fund. I mean, the trucks are, you know, the cost for the trucks keeps going up. We're looking at $500,000 for a new truck if you can get one. Maintenance on a truck, Bill could speak to that more readily than I could because he's taking it for maintenance, but maintenance fees keep going up. Like I said, the cost of tires, the cost of a filter, it's just outrageous. So to make this self-sufficient, to keep folks working at a living wage, I think $10 a month is pretty reasonable, but if you all would like to start with something else to keep, you know, to get our feet wet, that's certainly up to you.
my only thought is currently right now it's in the general fund. If we $2 a month, I'm just using right numbers here, that will pay for the toters the first year. If it does, I don't have a clue, right? We have to add all that up. And then the next year it's $3 to cover the salary increase. Like, you know, like we're building up to the $10 that's required to keep it an enterprise fund. Otherwise, if we do nothing, it stays general fund, right? So I'm just looking at a potential step process to say $2 a month, that'll pay for everybody's toters. The next year, we understand that the salary or whatever items we need to purchase, it's now going to be like, we're building up to the $10 that's required to be a self-sustaining business or enterprise. Correct.
And just to reiterate, the cost of the toters, if we would go with the 64 gallon and provide those, it's $156,000 for 3,000 toters, which is the price break point. So the first year you would be looking at a cost of $156,000 for those, whatever that breaks down into in the fee.
I don't know that, I've gotten several comments that it's not $10 a month is, it seems really reasonable to people. But it's because we bill quarterly, and so I just encourage people to at least know that you can pay monthly. If it is easier for you and your family to budget to pay monthly instead of quarterly, we only bill quarterly because the billing process is expensive also. But if you want to pay monthly and that's easier for your family, then you can pay monthly and then, you know, just get it $10 a month. You got it. Yes, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I just think if we can show folks a net cost, right? So it's $10 a month. Okay, but you're saving this much on insurance. You're saving this much on having to buy a new toter. however frequently you have to do it.
Mhm.
And so your net
Yeah.
is $5 or $4 or $3. I think it's important that we show people that option because that's the real cost,
Understood.
you know? So if you'd be kind enough to just give us a little insight on that when we're discussing it, certainly would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there's just more questions on this, and we don't have all the answers yet, so we'll just keep it as a discussion item for the next meeting. Yes, the consensus on that? All right,
Just a comment, since Bill said there's about, 800 to almost 1,000 toters floating around out there. I personally just bought one and it's, Walmart, but it's the toter brand, it's a 10-year warranty, so it's top line. 84,000, almost 85,000 would cover the toters to get everybody else one to get started. I mean, that's just a thought.
Is that even compatible with the automatic pickup? A Walmart?
Yeah.
It is.
I would assume so. Is it a 64 gallon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume so.
It's a toter brand.
I got a couple that are, I got a couple that aren't. Yeah, I use the ones that are toters first. All right. Moving forward. Okay, moving on. Mr. Dooley, letter flag signs.
Yes, yes, ma'am, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Zoning ordinance amendment 10-2023 is a town initiative to amend Article 12 or sign ordinance for the purpose of, one, permitting the temporary use of fluttering flags and rotating signs, or as it's referred to in the draft ordinance collectively as fluttering signs. This would be a new article that would be, a new section would be added to Article 12. It would be identified in section 12-7B. The sign ordinance changes also propose minor text amendments for clarity, internal consistency, and numbering the sections, renumbering sections of the ordinance. Article 12. Next slide, please. These are some of the types of signs that the Planning Commission contemplated. The fluttering flags you see in town and elsewhere. Some examples of a rotating sign there on your left, as well as sort of a hybrid in the middle, just to kind of give a sense of the intent of the fluttering flag ordinance that would permit these types of signs temporarily. A little bit of background, based on the Planning Commission minutes of September 8th, there was a council member request of the Planning Commission to consider permitting fluttering signs and flags in town as temporary signage, as they are currently prohibited. And the part of the justification was that these signs are currently in town, and they also convey kind of a beachy sort of feel to it, so it's kind of consistent with the town vibe. The proposed draft ordinance permitting fluttering signs really mimics many of the standards already codified for temporary signs under Article 12 in our zoning ordinance. The temporary fluttering flags would also be permitted in all zoning districts with a permit and fees paid, consistent with our temporary sign ordinance. As I mentioned just a minute ago, there are minor text amendments related to clarity, internal consistency, and renumbering of Article 12 to incorporate with the revisions to permit fluttering flags signage. Planning Commission reviewed the draft Article 12 and recommended to the council approval of the draft text amendments at their last Planning Commission meeting on January 26th by a vote of 5-0 with Commissioner Hale being absent. Next slide, please. So Some of the key provisions for the fluttering signs include one temporary fluttering sign per lot, or one sign for each business for up to 6 businesses, and 25 linear feet of street frontage per sign. No fluttering signs may be erected for more than 30 consecutive days. No business shall erect more than 6 temporary signs or banners per year. Temporary fluttering signs may not be illuminated. Fluttering signs shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet from any state route and 3 feet from any public roadways. Fluttering signs may not exceed 10 feet high. And finally, of course, all fluttering signs would have to maintain in good condition, so we wouldn't have any tattered or torn signs in town. Now, that's really was the planning commission's intent. I do want to bring to the council's attention tonight that I caught something here this evening that I've informed the Chair Matthews in the audience that may be of concern to the council, and so I want to just bring this to your attention. On section 12-8 under signs prohibited, it's also on page, this section is on page 12-4 at the bottom of the ordinance. Subsection A is partially crossed out, and it says signs that flutter, rotate, or otherwise move for the purpose of attracting attention, or those which produce sound, odor, liquid, or visible matter such as smoke or vapor. The staff's concern is that while allowing for temporary signs that rotate, like some of the ones shown in the PowerPoint presentation, by eliminating rotating signs out of prohibited signs, it could potentially open the door for somebody to come in and want a permanent rotating sign. And what I'm particularly thinking of is, you don't see them hardly anymore, but these are the pole signs, and the top part of the pole sign would rotate. Some of you may remember, like supermarkets had these that were very popular in the 20th century. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, that I don't think that that was necessarily the planning commission's intent. At the last meeting, the thought was these are just temporary signs, and then having a street sign that might flutter or rotate in addition to the flags would be acceptable. There was no discussion about having a permanent rotating sign. And my concern is that we might want to clean up that language a little bit under prohibited signs and make some tweaks to that before we move to public hearing. My suggestion, if the commission, or excuse me, the council could first eliminate rotating signs, period, for permanent or for temporary signs, period, or they could, the council could modify here tonight subsection A of Article 12-8 to eliminate the word flutter and say signs that rotate or otherwise move, except for temporary signs permitted under Article 12-7B for the purpose of attracting attention or those which produce sound, odor, liquid, or visible matter such as smoke or vapor. That would correct the problem, and so we wouldn't have to worry about somebody coming in wanting a permanent rotating sign, and still allow for potential rotating signs for on a temporary basis. So the council at this point could make those modifications and direct staff to move forward with a public hearing on the matter, or the commission, the council could direct these problems or these issues in addition to anything that the council has and remand it back to the planning commission for further study and modification, and then bring it back to the council as a revised draft.
Okay. Open that up or was there anything else to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any feedback on this? I think we knew this was coming. Those of us that have been paying attention to that. To move it to a public hearing with the language as Mr. Dooley explained to clarify that section in 12-8A seems reasonable. there any other discussion in there? Yeah, sure. let's do
This
it.
doesn't allow for the ones that like go up in the air like that, like the fan blowing.
We talked a little bit about that at the commission meeting. Fundamentally, I think we would consider it as a fluttering flag of sorts, or at least in that same vein. Council could, of course, specifically prohibit that as a temporary sign to make it clear that's your decision or preference.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure how people thought about that, but it's definitely different than a fluttering flag.
It's in a way the story is sort of a hybrid because it does flutter, but it's not really a flag as such.
Mhm.
But if we're considering allowing rotating signs, I kind of see it in the same vein.
I think an inflatable man is not a sign, but that's just my take on that.
Yeah.
Truer words than never been spoken.
I'm fine with this. My main thing about the flag signs was, this part here. Temporary fluttering signs shall be maintained in a neat, clean, and orderly fashion. Tattered and torn temporary fluttering signs shall not be permitted. Okay, just read that because that's the worst part about those things. Is when they get torn, they look awful. And it makes the whole town look ratty. And so if it's torn, take it down. Just take it down. And then get a new one. Get a nice pretty new one. That's all. Just put some emphasis on that, but I'm good with scheduling a public hearing if everybody else goes forward. Yeah, anything else? Okay, all right, consensus for that. I'm seeing all these head nods. Their consensus for public hearing at the next meeting with the recommended language around A. So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of that? Okay, I agree. I saw full consensus. Good job. 7. Go with us, 7.
Hi there, Madam Mayor, members of council. This item is probably not as detailed as the last one there. You had talked about this previously and the prior town attorney made some changes. And all I've done is gone through and looked at, the town clerk was kind enough to send me the underlying ordinances. I don't really have any substantive changes to any of these. I will be making a few changes prior to the regular meeting, and they're nothing that I think requires your input. They are simply changing some code sections that have been amended so that similar sections that are cited are accurate as of now and as of when you might vote on this. But Chapter 16 has essentially been repealed and reserved. And the reason I believe for that, in talking to Ms. C a while ago, was because the Virginia Code covers all of that obscenity. That was a funny way to put it. But in any event, the Virginia Code covers that. And furthermore, for some reason, the Virginia Code actually repealed the section allowing a locality to adopt the code, the statute. I didn't really understand that, but it doesn't matter because unless you think otherwise, what will happen is this will be repealed and this article, this chapter will be reserved. And if there are any questions, stop me. But the next chapter regarding police has no substantive changes. I've just made a few notes on just a little bit of language that had already been tightened up. Just a couple of minor changes that you'll see when you get the final red line, and some code sections. And likewise with Chapter 19, streets and sidewalks, same thing there. And really nothing major, nothing substantive, and nothing that I had questions about. So if you were comfortable with what was previously presented and is in your packet tonight, You won't be surprised when you see what comes before you at the next meeting for adoption. Any questions?
I have one question. Tom, I see
Sure.
you. Question.
No questions, but I think it's important to emphasize that in repealing the ordinance regarding obscenity, it's not like we're voting for obscenity. The state law still applies. The police can enforce it, the Commonwealth's attorney can prosecute it. The focus of our local ordinance, and I'll ask council to weigh on this, should be having ordinances where we are entitled to a portion of the fines for offenses committed if they're charged under local ordinance. Point is, there are a lot of offenses, particularly traffic offenses. If we don't have a local ordinance, it doesn't increase the fine, but the portion of that fine that would otherwise go to the town goes to the Commonwealth. So really, the focus of our ordinances needs to be on those offenses where we've got it cut.
It's very insightful. It's insightful. I think a lot of people don't know that's the difference. I just had one question on the last page under streets, as we're updating this ordinance and just talking about how all our fees are so outdated from the last century, I think. The permit required fees. Did you see that, Diane? Section 19-21. This is for if any party seeks to perform work in streets in the town. It has a fee schedule for those things. And I didn't know, is the state, are those the state's mandated fees? Like sometimes the state says you can charge up to this amount or this amount for these things. Is there any benefit to looking at those while we're going ahead and streamlining this and making it better, improving it now?
No, if you're going to do it, certainly that's the time to do it. I do not know the answer offhand, but I will look at that and see if there is a corresponding Virginia code section that limits it in some fashion.
Okay.
And I'll make a note to do that.
They appear low.
Yeah, I mean, they do.
Based
And
on, even other localities where I've worked, they appear low.
so let's fix that. If we're gonna fix this ordinance, let's make sure we fix that.
Okay.
I didn't have any other questions on any of the other stuff. Does anybody else have any other questions on other stuff? Seemed pretty straightforward. All right. I'm not seeing any more comments, so we'll go to disposition of town-owned property discussion from Councilman Reminder.
First of all, we apologize because I'm dealing with some serious sinus issues. And most of what has been said this evening is echoed in my head. Okay, now I'll spare the jokes about being hollow in the head. But anyway, there are really two threshold issues associated with disposition of real estate. The first is, do we need or anticipate a need of the subject property? Then the second issue is, what's the reasonable value of the property? Now, if we're looking at a larger parcel that we want to put on the market, where there are prospective bidders, more than one, I think the value is what we draw in terms of bids that we get. I think those are probably easy if we decide to dispose of property, put it out for public offer, accept the highest offer. That's fairly easy in terms of value. Where this gets a little hinky is with the strips and spaces around town of little parcels that are adjoining landowners. We dealt with Kennedy issue. We've got Joyce Gunderson who's looking to, and these are properties, assuming we have no use for them. Then the question becomes, what's the reasonable value of that property? I had incorrectly suggested appraisal at one time. I want to withdraw that because a formal appraisal would probably run in the thousands of dollars and make it unmarketable. But we do need some kind of ballpark measure for valuation. Something as simple as going to a competent real estate broker and saying, what's the property value of the property without the add-on? And if you add on this piece of property, what's the value? And that really is kind of a reasonable spread in terms of what we should be seeking. I mean, you could do percentages of square footage by joisted parcels. There are several ways you can get around this, but I think the most practical way is basically having a competent real estate broker say, here's what the property is worth as it stands, here's what it's worth with the addition, and that's basically our market value. And that way, I think we get the opportunity to dispose of these properties we don't need and put them back in the tax rolls. With that, I'll take questions, but I'm not sure I can hear them.
I think that's very reasonable. When I got my house reappraised, and you could either go for an official appraisal and pay like $1,500, or you could get a broker's opinion. There's a form for it and everything. It's very standard, and it was like $200. And either one fit the bill, and the mortgage company didn't care which one it was. So I understand the difference of, you're right, marketability. We're really talking about oftentimes doing a lot line adjustment 5 feet. We're not talking about like substantial real estate in those situations.
And the idea is that you've got an adjoining property on the tax, you make use of it, it goes back on the tax rolls.
Yeah, I understand. Again, that's what.
Oh, I know we discussed this previously, and I guess one of the topics that came up with back when Vivian, previous attorney, was here is, do we make a townwide policy? Do we try to liquidate all of these properties? As the public works liaison last year, I got a lot of questions about, well, I've got this easement between me and my neighbor out back. He does, and everything's overgrown in between the two fences. Other people, like Ms. Kennedy wanting to buy them. So I guess we have to, as a council, figure out, is there a value to us keeping them? Or like Tom says, get them back on the tax rolls. So what do we do? Like an assessment of all the properties in town, or we just let people approach us? I mean, it can be complicated, is what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
probably a worthwhile venture.
Having taken a preliminary look at titles in Colonial Beach, I was down in Montrose one day, took a look, and I ran away. Okay, so I don't know that we know what we know. Do we know what we know? Okay. Town manager's slide.
It's not necessarily clear based on some of the records as you've alluded to. We've had to go through at least, one potential sale since we've been here where that's become a question. Years ago, I think the sale was probably back in 19, and that's still in question. So as you mentioned, the records in some instances are still not clear.
And
I don't know that a comprehensive, it probably is easier without great consternation just to deal with these as people come to us that have an interest in it. I don't know that it serves any purpose to go out and try to identify all these parcels, because somebody's going to know if they've got the 5-foot easement that they want, they're going to know about it and come to us.
What about in the situation where you have two homes? There's a 10-foot strip, because I've seen, and one guy wants, the other doesn't. And so when we give him the whole 10 foot, so we have a zigzag of, he's got the whole thing, this person's got the whole thing, split it down the middle. How will that work?
We got two of them in one, and let's start bidding.
What if one wants and the other doesn't?
Yeah, I think that's case by case situations, and that's exactly why Tom said not a comprehensive policy, because you've got to take each one. Sometimes there is a right of way that extends through an entire block. In that situation, it's probably not right to sell a piece of that right away. But there are other right of ways that exist between two individual lot owners that have no, purpose that's been fulfilled at this time, and it affects no one except those two people, and they both come and agree. I mean, the one thing that I've seen kind of consistently is if somebody wants to buy something and the neighbor's not in agreement with the deal, it's not going to go anywhere. So you got to figure out whatever it is between you and the adjacent people before you even come and approach us. Because I don't think anybody's looking to do things that are controversial in that sense.
if I may, Mayor, just a comment. I heard the word easement mentioned several times. Just a caution to make sure, I know we have a lot of utility easements and so forth, that are probably not recorded or probably recorded somewhere where we don't remember where they've been recorded and so forth. So just to make sure that we know that there is absolutely no reason for that easement to be there would be my cautionary.
Yeah, again, I don't think a blanket comprehensive thing, but I do think allowing a BPO, a brokerage opinion, especially for some of the smaller things, is a reasonable thing to consider.
But how would we know if there's a diesel if it's not recorded? If it's not recorded, then it's not recorded.
We could do this utility ticket and check utility lines. That would be one way we could do it.
Would there be a cost to that?
It would be staff time. If we're looking for utilities that are owned by the town, it would be staff time to go out and locate those utilities. There's usually no cost to calling them this utility ticket. If we suspect it's Dominion or some other utility, if we call in a ticket, they will come out and mark as well. So we should know a blanket utility. We should have all those blanket utility markings if we call that ticket in.
And one little point, this will require a public hearing, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If somebody's unhappy with what we're doing, we're gonna hear about it.
Yeah, that's really.
Just one last comment. The one thing to consider is some of the complaints I got last year were overgrown easements, vines growing in the fences and stuff like that. So I don't know if the town would entertain looking at certain properties that may be more of a liability for the town, trees falling on people's houses and us having to go and, because I know it's very expensive to maintain trees and if they're just overgrown. So just a suggestion.
Anything else? Yes.
So as a point of clarification, we have been requiring appraisals. Is the consensus now that this BPO is fine in lieu of an unofficial appraisal as a policy change?
Maybe there's a square footage, kind of limitation to that BPO consideration.
Are you modifying that?
Well, a buildable lot, 5,000 square feet, so definitely anything
Below that.
below that. Is that getting a parameter? Is that helpful? Throwing some out, anybody, you want to go under 4,000 square feet? That way, if it's close to a buildable lot, we get a little more investigation on that.
Well, I would think maybe 2,500. I mean, that would be a half of a lot. So maybe if it's an individual owns a lot and there's like a half of a lot in between the other piece.
Yeah. Most of these things are like 200 square feet.
I'm not
Like, I just
saying-
want to make sure that.
But we don't know what we don't know. So
Yeah.
that's, if we're setting parameters, a half of a lot may be a little bit better than 5,000 square feet, 2,500. Because anything other than that, I mean, 5 feet of right of way is not going to add any property value to you realistically. A half of a lot adding to, adding 3 lots on one piece of property will definitely add value to the house.
Yeah, let's go with 1,500.
Is this part of the hearing process? Or?
We're just giving direction about when she interacts with people about purchasing these things, what the next steps would be on what kind of information we're asking them to provide. Not a public hearing for any individual piece of property.
So we could just make that general consensus tonight without any public.
That is determined on what she has to do, whether or not we're getting a true, I'm sorry, what is the word? Appraisal, or a broker looking into it, because the broker cost is hundreds of dollars, the appraisal is probably 1,500.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying, are we making that decision tonight just on the fly, or is that going to?
She needs direction. So is there direction? She's asking for direction from the council.
Should we vote then? I mean, if it's
Yeah, I mean,
official policy change, I would feel comfortable with.
I don't think it's codified, but yeah, we can. A standard practice. I mean, that's. what
There is
you're bringing up,
there is no
right?
code that says we shall sell anything. It's just that in previous, like Miss Kennedy or any other that's come to ask about property, buying something, there's parameters involved. And if it's under 1,500 square feet and we can identify the cost of it being a brokerage cost of $200, let's use that number, then that's less money that we have to deal with as far as the appraisal of the property. Now, if it's larger than that, we should get it appraised, and if it's a whole lot, well, we're selling it at a premium then because somebody could build one. I think that's the process.
Right, I'm definitely not arguing that. I'm just saying, should we, if it's gonna be a policy, should we?
Sure. Do you have any other additions to the policy?
So what is it gonna be? 4,000, under 4,000, or 2,500?
1,500,
Under 1,500. Okay.
or we would accept a BPO instead of an official appraisal.
I support that.
May I ask the town manager a question? Is there any wisdom in running this past the town attorney to make sure that there are no live grenades? Step one, trying to sell a minuscule lot.
We can discuss it all. We can discuss it along with our new director of planning and zoning. I do think that there could be some potential implications there. We
Okay.
also have involvement, so yes, we can.
So there's not, just ask the other members of the council, is there a reason to do this right now? Or would-
We're not selling anything
I
right now. I
understand that.
just want to make sure that's clear.
I understand that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is make sure there are no implications.
Well, Stefan, do you have any takeaways right now?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you have any guidance you can provide to Mr. Councilmember Wood's question right now?
Well, I think all you're doing right now is asking for how to handle these situations in the future. And unless and until there is an offer and an acceptance and a sale, there's nothing to do. But when you get to that point, there's the public hearing and drafting of the deed, like we've already done a few times, even since I've been here. So I think you're just, I don't know what policy there is now, and if there is any real written policy. To the extent there is, it sounds like you're amending the direction that the town manager and thus the town can go to get to situations where you might be selling property. I mean, another way to do it is just to see what people offer and what their basis for it is. And if they want to convince you and go to the trouble and expense to do that, they can do that. But, you know, unless and until you get to the point where there's a real offer and you need approval by the council after a public hearing, that's where all that happens on a case-by-case basis.
Just because there's a BPO doesn't mean we have to say yes. We don't have to vote to sell anything.
Right.
Okay. All right, is there any other, Tom, was that helpful to your discussion point, or make sure what you were requesting got addressed? I know you're having audio.
Do we want to adopt some type of policy or guidance for the town manager? I want to ask the question.
I would ask her to propose something like that, then, if that's something that she's, I think she's saying.
We'll draw up something and bring it back.
There you go. She's gonna,
Draw up something and bring it back to us.
Let me draw something and bring it back to you.
she's gonna do it.
You don't draw it.
You're welcome to do it too. You guys can both work on it and bring it back to us.
I'm sorry, I can't hear a clip.
I'm sorry, Tom. Okay, I think we're gonna move to recess with closed session. So I'll read the closed session language and then we'll recess. I move that the town council of the town of Clinton Beach, Virginia convene and close meeting for the following purpose and to discuss the following subjects, all of which are exempt by Virginia law from public meeting requirements as indicated, namely pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, discussion of performance of duties and consideration of the discipline and certain appointees of town council, including planning commission members, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3 and 8, discussion and consideration of the disposition of publicly held real properties where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the town council in consultation with legal counsel regarding the specific legal matters related thereto. Legal. Pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711 AA, consultation with legal counsel regarding the following matter requiring the provision of legal advice, dispatch service agreements between the town of Westmoreland County and pursuant to Virginia Code 2.23711A, consultation with legal counsel regarding the following matter requiring the provision of legal advice to Rappahannock Regional Criminal Justice Training Academy. We move for a closed meeting.
So moved.
The second. All in favor? All right, we can take 10-minute recess and then we'll be in for closed